you tell us a little bit about what we know about the causes of bowel cancer?
Oh, that is a big question to start with. I think the short answer to what are the causes is it's complicated, and there are a lot of things we do know about, but equally there are a lot of things that we don't know about or that we're unsure about, which is why research plays a really big role for the organisation in getting to the bottom of a lot of these unanswered questions.
We as a charity are doing research into the causes as well, because as you said, there are still some unknowns. Can you tell me a little bit about what we're doing at the moment?
Yeah, of course. So understanding more about how bowel cancer develops, particularly in people that are high risk of the disease and younger people. And as you know, we've got a particular focus at the charity on younger patients, so our Never Too Young campaign. I mean, it's really important that we understand across the piece, across all ages, what are the drivers, the causes of bowel cancer. But the fact that we know that bowel cancer is increasing in younger people year on year, not only just in the UK, but across Europe and a lot of the rest of the world, you know, something's going on there and we need to get to the bottom of it. So we've got a number of research projects, about a quarter of the current portfolio, which is small at around 13 projects, but really targeted exclusively on understanding bowel cancer. So we've got about 4 projects that are looking into possible causes. Some of them are looking at the genetic drivers, so are looking again at Lymph syndrome, but also understanding what genetic changes are happening in younger people that we know about and that we can investigate and understand what role they might be playing in people developing the disease. And I know that you spoke to Dr. Claire Pallas as part of the Remember Together, a celebration that we had earlier this year. And she gave a really great overview of her research. And I think that's just such a really important area for us to be investing in. But one of the other areas that we look at, one that I'm hugely fascinated by, is something called the microbiome. Now, it's become quite a fashionable term in terms of, we know all about gut health and lots of people will take probiotics. So your microbiome is all the microorganisms that live within your body, all the way through, including your bowels. So this is like bacteria and fungus and yeast, various other things that live and actually help us in many ways. But we know that in some people who develop bowel cancer, there's a difference in the microbiome that's found in their gut to people who don't have bowel cancer. And we've got a number of projects looking in this area, and specifically one looking at people in those that are under 50. So are those changes there because they have bowel cancer, or are those changes there before they develop bowel cancer and provide an environment for that bowel cancer to grow and flourish? So that's really important. It's just absolutely fascinating, and we're just in a really privileged position that we're able to support those projects.
Yeah, amazing. That does sound really interesting. So at what point are we at with those projects?
They're still all ongoing. Actually, one of the projects, the Lymph syndrome project, has just finished. So we just had an update from the academics. So that was Professor Sir John Byrne and Dr. Jem Rashbat up in Newcastle. So what they've done is they've created something called a Lymph syndrome registry. So with people's permission, they've been collecting genetic information from a range of patients and actually looking to see, have they got Lymph syndrome and what are the genetic changes that they do have. So actually being able to build up a picture of Lymph syndrome within their area and what they have found. And what we know across the board is that there are so many people who have Lymph syndrome who are undiagnosed. We think we only scratch the surface. There are so many people out there that probably have Lymph syndrome and who are completely unaware of it. So obviously, if you don't know that you're at high risk of bowel cancer, you can't undergo surveillance, colonoscopies, and your friends and family, or your family rather, who also might be at increased risk, aren't aware of it either. So it's really important that we start to get a better picture of what Lymph syndrome looks like, so that geneticists within the NHS can start to build a better understanding of it. So that is a brilliant example of a research project that's got a real world, practical application to it.
That's actually going to be saving lives.
Yeah.
Within years potentially, like
absolutely. And I know that there's some work under using that registry that's undergoing at the moment with the NHS, looking at how we can better serve people with Lymph syndrome. So I mean, that's, for me, that is exactly where our research investments should be going, into projects where we can help to make a tangible real world difference.
That's great. And that's great for our supporters to know as well, that their donations have helped fund things like that are having that life-saving difference coming up.
Absolutely. I think it's really, with research, it is really challenging, because research is very expensive by the very nature of it. Takes a long time. Often the seeds of what your research investment sort of grow into will then take a number of years. But for me, that's no bad thing, because you can't build a house without having really great foundations. Often the research that is invested in is in the solid foundations to then allow other researchers to go on and get to where we need to be. But it is great when we have projects like Professor Sir John Burns, where we know that that's going to make a significant difference in a very short amount of time.
Our research you've talked about, it looks at the causes of bowel cancer, but we also look at diagnosis and we look at treatment. What are our priorities right now? What are we working on specifically for research, and where are you hoping to see developments and progress?
So as you say, one of the things we want to do is really understand why bowel cancer develops, and actually identify ways of preventing bowel cancer. We also want to improve that early diagnosis and particularly bowel screening piece, because that is key to reducing not only the numbers of people who are diagnosed with bowel cancer, because obviously if you get to those polyps early and get them removed, you can often stop bowel cancer from developing in the first place, but also making sure people are diagnosed at the earliest stages of the disease, then they have a much better chance of survival. And that's where we want people to be. We also need to understand more about why people are at higher risk of bowel cancer. So that's the causes and those kind of genetic and lifestyle risks. And we also want to understand much more about bowel cancer in the under 50s, which we know is a growing issue. And then we also want to make sure that we can get best treatment and care for all bowel cancer patients, and that's a very big area. So there's some very meaty, chunky areas for us to be looking at. And we've got, our research program is very much in its infancy. We fund 13 projects at the moment. A number of those, like I said, are coming to fruition over the next year or so. So I think invite me back in 12 months' time, and I think we'll be having a really, really rich conversation about what our research has started to show. We have lots of surgical developments that are coming through from our surgical research chair, Professor David Jane. We have the great work of Rob Jones, who I know that you've also been speaking to, that we've been so fortunate to support his post. So there are a number of developments that are coming up. There's all the Lymph stuff that we've been talking about. So I'm really excited to see what happens over, the next couple of years. But I think with research, we just need to keep the investment going. And I think we've had to take a little bit step back during the last years of COVID and the significant funding issues that we faced as a charity. We had to make hard decisions. And one of those was to not directly fund any new research last year. But we want to get that back up and running. And I've got, some great plans for that for later on in the year. So watch this space.